welcome, and this is the largest crowd I've ever had for a constituent meeting.
All right.
Probably because we're hosting it jointly. I'm Dan Sigel. For those who don't know me, I'm the 4th Ward Commissioner. With me is Jane Hall. We are co-hosting this meeting tonight, but it's an open meeting, obviously, for the township. Very brief background about me. I'll tell you what we have here. If you're interested in materials and things, Jane will give you an introduction. And then I'm going to introduce the people from the YMCA, because I know there are a number of people who are here who have questions, comments, whatever about the YMCA. And then we'll do that. And then once that aspect of the meeting is concluded, we've got a number of representatives, and that way they can go about their business. And then the remainder of the meeting will address 3rd and 4th Ward or township issues, as we do with any traditional meeting. The difference, though, is that this meeting is being recorded, because it's very nice of the Y to come and bring all these representatives, so that this way those who can't see the meeting tonight will be able to see it on the township channel. It's part of what we're trying to do to make the township channel more accessible and more information for all the residents. Very briefly, we also have here joining us tonight Steve D'Amelio, who is the 1st Ward Commissioner. In Steve D'Amelio's seat, but not Steve D'Amelio, is Lori Hanlon-Widup, the Assistant Township Manager. And then behind me are Lieutenant Joe Hagan, Deputy Chief John Viola, the Township Manager Larry Gentili. And they'll be here to also answer questions, because to me the purpose of the meeting is to allow residents to ask questions of the people who actually can give you the answers. We funnel them to them, and then they make us look good. In terms of materials, we have information about the Y, information about PennDOT using contractors to deal with the state highways that are in the township that are not necessarily in the best of conditions. Some other information, including a list of all of the state highways in the township, so that you know that those roads, when you drive on them, are not the ones that we're responsible for, and that's the roads we get almost all the complaints. And if you haven't received, we have copies of the township newsletter. I'm going to let Jane introduce herself, and then we'll bring the Y up.
I'm not sure if this, oh yeah, it is working.
I don't know if that one.
Yeah, okay, well, I am too. They used to call me leather lungs in high school. So I am Jane Hall, I'm the 3rd Ward Commissioner, and I'm here tonight to answer any questions that I can, along with Commissioner Siegel and our large, wonderful group here. Thank you to the Y for coming. We have had a lot of questions over the last year, mostly about the Y and things that are going on in the membership and the traffic. We also have a tremendous number of questions for PennDOT. I wish they were here tonight. And we're going to just open it up to the Y in the beginning, and then if you have any questions regarding the 3rd Ward or township questions, then we're happy to do what we can to answer them for you tonight. So thanks for being here. We really do appreciate it. We know that coming out on a work night is always something, so we appreciate you coming.
And I was remiss, there is one other elected official here, Lisa Lasianka, the District Justice, who serves 4 of the 8 wards in the township, is also here. So you can ask her questions, but not about your cases. With that, what I'd like to do, Michael, maybe you come up and introduce, I don't know who you want to introduce, who has come here from the Y tonight to.
I just want some of those papers.
You can get that at the end, or you can try to get it. I'll give you the microphone.
Good evening. I'm Michael Troop. I'm Vice President for Facility Services. So I deal with the construction stuff, major construction. You have Dave Mullen, who is the Executive Director, Buddy Bingham, who is the Property Director, and Tom, I'm not sure what you're... John. Senior Program Directors. We have also Jennifer Walsh, who is our Traffic Engineer, who is also a Township resident, who she'll probably be able to pinch it and answer some questions for us. So.
With that, I have one email comment. I'll leave that at this point if I'm someone else coming in. Also, just for our sake, there are sign-in sheets around. We would ask that you sign in so we know who's here. It also enables us to communicate with you. For those who don't know, I have a newsletter that regularly goes around the township providing information. I know Commissioner Hall has a newsletter, and it allows us to keep you informed of events. My newsletters come out regularly and do provide that service. But what I'd like to do is first, I don't know if you have any other comments. If not, I'll just let people who are here ask. What we would ask you do, speak into the mic and give your name and your address, and just...
My name's Joe Pinelli. I have a business on Hillcrest Avenue. I have an office. I've been there almost 20 years. I never had a parking problem, ever. The office had realtors in it. We had a lot of traffic. After Nolan Painting did their modifications, their lot fills up. Sometimes people park in front of my office. Since the Y came, I'm lucky if I can park in front of my office. It has eased up, just like they promised me it would when the weather broke. But I just got a couple questions. This is not the first Y you guys have built. Don't tell me, oh, well, we didn't know we'd have this many members. You know how many members you're going to have. Why didn't you build a parking facility that would accept all the people that you were willing to bring in? You knew about the Ys that were going to close once you were opened. You know, supposedly they did a traffic study, just like they did when they had Haverford State property for free, and then it cost us $3 million to buy it because of the feasibility studies. I just want to know why an institution that does not pay taxes is willing to tear down houses that do pay taxes just to make room for parking when they should have built a high-rise parking lot in the first place, because that you can't tell me you don't know the membership. This is not your first why. So I don't even know if you have an answer for that question, but build a high-rise parking lot. Don't tear up any more property that pays taxes in the township. And because if you're not paying taxes, how are we what value do you give us to make up for the revenue we lose? That's all.
Well, I think I'll try and answer that question halfway, and then I'll leave half for Dave. It's not as easy as you'd think as just to build a parking garage. There are ordinances within the township that would kind of require us to go through a long rigmarole, whether or not that gets approved or not. It's also a Superfund site, a parking structure. It does go beyond foundations and footings for what a building would be. So there are potential restrictions in regards to that. There are setbacks in regards to residents closer to Ralston Avenue and all of that. You can't just put a parking garage just anywhere. I don't know if I'm in a position to answer the questions in regards to tearing down land. We have a parking problem. Everybody knows that. We're trying to fix the parking problem to try and appease residents, if you will. Most of the residents are our members, so we're trying our best to do so. It came as a possibility for us to get those properties to extend our parking to help solve the problem that you're having over there. It's a way we can try. We can only try. Came available, and we're going to run with that as far as the township will allow us to go. It's unfortunate, but we have to fix a problem that exists. We did market studies that told us we would have 18,000 membership units within 2 years. We built a phenomenal building, and we do offer excellent service, so people come by. Unfortunately, it's what it is. We have to work on the back end to try and fix it as best as we can. And I'll hand the mic over to Dave, but he can, respond in any other way he can in terms of trying to answer your question. I'm not sure we will be, but we'll try.
Well, cutting membership would be the only other thing.
Right,
If you can't build a parking garage.
I'm saying that.
My name is Dave Mullen. I'm the executive director of the Haverford Area Y. To speak to your point about what we add to the community, we currently employ about 35 to 40% of our employees come from the 19083 zip code, so we are a significant employer. We also, last year, offered about $200,000 in financial assistance to members of the 19083 zip code. So part of the things that separate us from the LA Fitnesses and the Valleys is our financial assistance program. So we raise money every year from businesses, members, staff, board members to subsidize membership programs. You know, the classic story is husband and wife, dual income, somebody loses a job, they can't afford summer camp, swim lessons. We subsidize things like that. We don't ever turn anybody away for inability to pay. So about $200,000 last year went to local residents to be able to afford things like that. The answer, we get questioned a lot about capping membership. It's not a practice that we have in our association. I went back, leading up to this meeting, I went back and looked at our scans, which is our card swipes for members per month. And we average about 60,000 scans a month. And we have since the first month we opened, and we're on pace to hit about 60,000 scans this month. So while our membership has climbed, there's no denying that, we're over the projection by about 6,000 people. The volume is high. It's the highest in our association, but it hasn't risen with the growth in membership. Part of the reasons we don't cap membership, I spoke about the financial assistance program. Because we don't turn anybody away, we feel like how could we ever just have a hard line and say, well, now we're not accepting any more memberships when people might need our services. And the proximity of our building, what's to stop us from, why would we not allow maybe our neighbor who could walk and parking's not an issue for them? How do we determine who doesn't get a membership, who does get a membership? And I think the scan reports show that we could have, so the first month we opened in October, we went from about 4,000 members that we brought over from Mainline, and we jumped pretty quickly to about 16,000, 17,000, and we were still seeing 60,000 scans. And now we're at about 23,000 members, and we're still seeing the same volume. So we could have capped it at 16, and it wouldn't have really affected the volume that we're seeing. And it's not a practice that we have in our association. So that's the answer to the capping of the membership that we get a lot.
Well, where are the members coming from that they all have to park in our neighborhoods? Because I even told a guy the other day, you're allowed to park in Nolan's lot. And he said Nolan has a sign that his car will be towed, and he's not moving. Wasn't an issue that day. I didn't have that many people.
Sure.
And I'm not going to get in an argument. I just asked him nicely, and he said, I appreciate what you're saying, but I won't. If I asked anybody else to move, a lot of people said fine. A lot of people said, I've been driving around for an hour looking for a parking place. If I don't park here now, I don't get to the Y. I don't own the street. I know that. I'm going to work with the commissioners, hopefully, to get some other things resolved that way. But, you know, when you say we offer this much to the community, it might be to the community at large. It doesn't help the neighbors. And to me, that's not being a good neighbor. And I don't know what else. I mean, you don't really have an answer is what you're saying. The issue of the parking garage, I don't see how a Superfund site, if it's just for a footing for a parking garage where you're not storing food, you're not housing people, it's going to be encapsulated in concrete. I don't really think that's an issue. And I'd like to hear it from the township officials that we will not allow a parking garage to suffice for the answer, because I still don't see the reason to tear down tax-paying homes for this. So if the township wants to rebut that, then we go along with it, because we have no choice.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly don't have the answer to that.
Does the township have?
One at a time, and we want to use the mic because it is being recorded. I'm going to try to do this sort of like we do the commissioner meetings, row by row, because that way we're probably more likely to get everyone. Second?
Maybe you can say we'll address certain things afterwards.
Well, yeah, this is why only.
Okay, my name's Michelle Alvarez, 134 Hastings Avenue. I am a recreation and parks professional by education and past experience. As a matter of fact, my master's degree was to reorganize and develop a YMCA for State College, Pennsylvania. So I'm very familiar with the Y program and so forth. But I do live in this township, and I cannot go down Eagle Road from after 2:30 in the afternoon when school lets out and all the programs begin until 8, 9 o'clock at night when it lets up lightly. and therefore we have to drive in circuitous routes to get to the Manoa Shopping Center or wherever we want to go, the Blue Route. So my question is, I get your philosophical reasons for not wanting to cap membership, but I sat in this commissioner's room when the proposals were made to the commissioners, and we were told the mainline Y was not closing. Right. And we were told that this would be part of the suburban Ys, but I know from people that attend the Y, people come here from the West Philadelphia Y because the facilities are nicer and they pay less membership over there, but they're allowed to come here. So there's added people using this Y. And while I understand you're providing a service, and I agree with your financial aid, so to speak, to people who are in financial situations, you can't just let this Y grow to a membership of 50,000 people. This town can't handle that. And I also think that in reference to the parking on the neighboring streets, because I know neighbors on other side streets, that perhaps it should be permit parking only on those streets where the people who live on those streets get a sticker for their car or have a business on that street to prevent all these excess people. But the other thing that I'm puzzled about, because I'm pretty frequently going up and down Eagle Road, is the auxiliary lot on the other side of the Pico generating station is rarely full. But people don't want to walk that far when they can park on Hillcrest. Right. And to me, that's wrong, because that parking lot has parking spots in it, yet you can't get to Nolan Printing and any of the businesses in that Nolan Printing parking lot. So that's kind of an issue that I see. But, that being said, I think you have to think about membership caps because this township is only so big and can only handle so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Take another comment.
Head Coacher, 320 Cherry Lane, Havertown. I was here before. The parking around that, I don't live there. I'm over the other direction. I can't drive there. I avoid the issue, go way out of the way. We were told it was going to be about 9,000. Oh, sorry, we're so good, we exploded to 16. Cap it. When I go to a pool club, anyone around here, if I don't get in under the cap, I don't get in the pool club for 4 or 5 years. I don't go inside that building of the Y. I really couldn't exercise another pound off if I wanted to. But the outside doesn't even make me look nice. I don't see trees up there, anything to make it nice for us. And I'm really upset when I think of the inside, when either the people from the Y or the commissioners allowed 2 pools to be built and didn't even think of our township that maybe the high school team could come over there and use those pools, even if they had to rent them, instead of having to rent at Haverford College. I don't feel the Y has thought at all, not that much, about the people in this community. Nonprofit, maybe some of it, but don't tell me any of you are living on a $70,000 income per family that I know of 5 of my kids, one of which can afford to get a membership there because she gets a cut. None of the other 5 come. They don't deserve it, not getting one. They go over to another Y, one over there in Ardmore, not a Y physical fitness place. No, I don't think you're thinking of the township. No, I don't admire anything of what you've done. You better start to think about the people in our community if you want to be an upstanding part of our community. I don't think you have. And I wish the commissioners would back the people in the community instead of them.
Thank you. Oh, did you want to go next, sir? Sorry.
Gerald Wolf, Hillcrest Avenue. You people from the Y, in your wildest dreams, you thought this place was going to be small. You built the place, then you shut down other places. And now the people from Garrett Road come here, people from Philadelphia come here, the Ardmore group comes here. You have created a large elephant for our township to put up with. We can't park on our own streets. We don't even possess our own neighborhood anymore. I'm sorry that you guys are here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. First question is
Give us your name and your address.
Art Matter. I live at 545 Lawrence, right behind the Y. question for the gentleman from the Y. Was that speculation, or did you guys pursue a garage? You said the Superfund site, the city, the township, whatever. Was that something that you guys had looked at or had never looked at, and you think that may be the case?
You mean building the garage?
Yeah, building a garage.
Yes, we have looked at that. And because of setbacks in regards to the existing lot, it precludes us from going further with that. I'm sure at some point or the other, you can probably hear more about it. You can talk to the township in regards to that. But yes, we've looked at that, and it just was not going to work out in terms. I mean, you guys would have more issues with that more than what we're trying to do with those two houses. Let me just answer the Ardmore question. The point that raised in regards to Ardmore. We thought what we would have done once we didn't think with the close proximity, which depends on which way you go, it's probably about 2.89 miles from Ardmore to get here, that we would have, both communities would have maintained a YMCA here, state of the art, and a building ran down as what we had at Mainline. So we thought we would renovate that building and we would move our corporate offices there. Well, I sat with the zoning officers and members of the zoning board there. The district does not allow that. So we would have to have a YMCA type operation there, and 10% of administrative staff would support that. That would not work for us. We couldn't maintain that. We saw membership starting to decline there to come here. Now, we can't stop the members from coming. We can't tell them, no, you have to stay here and go here. So we had no choice. The board of directors who manages, oversees the CEO of our organization said, well, you have no choice but to put up for sale. So we did. We sold the building. Nobody lied to anybody that it wasn't going to be closed. We have absolutely nothing to do with what's at Garrett Road. That's a total different independent association. If you lived in Radnor and you wanted to come here, we couldn't tell you. Dave would not tell you, you can't come here, you got to stay to Radnor.
That's right.
We can't do that. That's not what we do. It's unfortunate, but that's not what we do. We can't tell.
We got an elephant.
Okay.
Cap the membership.
Let's keep this as a dialogue, one person at a time.
We're trying to work to solve.
No, you're
No,
not.
you're not. No, you're not.
Please.
Cap the membership.
We're trying to work to solve the parking issue that existed way beyond the YMCA. We're trying our best. There are intersection improvements which have not been completed yet. It's been a work in progress. PennDOT wanted us to do right turning lane from Eagle to Darby. We tried feverishly up until the fall to work with the church to acquire land from the church. The church wouldn't budge. We have documentation. That would help the traffic problem. That would help the township.
Why should we charge? Why should we have to change? You change, cap the membership, lower the traffic, cap the membership.
Please.
You change.
I'm only giving you guys facts of what it is. I'm going to say something that you probably don't want to hear. Traffic issues that you have today, existed in the township before the YMCA. Okay? It may have gotten a little bit worse, but it was here. We're trying to make it better. We're just asking you guys to work with us to make certain that happens.
It's been a year and a half. Look at me on Jim.
Please, we're trying to have a dialogue, and one person at a time, and
I don't know.
let's try another.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Art.
Go ahead, he's a Cardinal fan, he's good.
So, Dan, my name is Joel Perlish, live on off of Lawrence Road. Has this already been decided? Are those two houses gone and we're just here to get information? Or is this a fact-finding thing to see if you guys may decide to do it or may not decide to do it? In other words, are we all sitting here and talking just just for the, it wouldn't help at all, and it's already been decided, or is this a decision in progress?
I'm going to jump in and just tell you what's going on.
Good.
First, the township is not acquiring these two properties. The YMCA is acquiring the property, so it's
They
not.
don't, I'm sorry, they don't already own them then?
No, I don't believe so.
I've heard that they do, so that's
No, I
in fact
believe that
don't.
they have it under agreement of sale, but I don't believe that that the sale has been consummated as of yet. The township had received a petition from the YMCA for zoning reclassification of the two parcels. The parcels were under contract with the YMCA. We did hold public hearings. We held a meeting before the Planning Commission, and the immediate neighbors were notified. When I believe Commissioner McGarity sent out additional notices, there was a public hearing before the commissioners, and then there were 2 readings of an ordinance to reclassify the properties from the residential zoning to the light industrial zoning, which is the zoning district that the YMCA is located in. So with respect to the zoning, that ship has sailed. That's done. Okay. The next step is their zoning hearing board application, which is now pending. And I don't remember the date. Check the website. If you're not within that notice area, check the website because we do put the public notices up. There's also going to be little yellow posters put on the property. So when you drive by, you'll notice a poster announcing the public hearing. After that zoning hearing, the matter will go through land development. The land development does not go to the zoning hearing board. The land development comes to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Commissioners. So one process is a zoning hearing, and that is a hearing, sworn testimony. You can't sit in the audience and call things out. You'll be removed from the meeting. That's a hearing. This case that comes before the Board of Commissioners, that's a public meeting for land development, and they act on a recommendation of the Planning Commission. So if you have any input into any of the land development issues, you come to the planning meeting. Okay? That's the best way to do that.
Is your sense, folks who know more about this than certainly we in the audience know, is your sense that this will fly or not, or you have totally no idea?
Well, I'm not going to, I can't say what the zoning hearing board's going to do. They're an independent body. They operate independent of the Board of Commissioners.
Do you have a sense, though?
Well, I feel like if they have the hardship, the requisite hardship, they're going to be entitled to the relief that they're seeking. One of the things that they will need is relief from an impervious surface ratio. So what they've done is they've incorporated pavers into the design to try and use some green infrastructure to develop, to offset the additional impervious surface ratio. To answer your question very directly,
Yes.
my sense is it will go. And I'm going to tell you why it's my sense that it will go. There are easements through the center of the lot where the gum factory used to stand. The easements were granted to the Environmental Protection Agency and allowed them to run a series of pipes, extraction wells, and monitoring wells for the groundwater, the contaminated groundwater that was poisoned as a result of the National Wood Preservers operation across the street where the CAP landfill is now. That water runs in pipes. It goes behind where the gum factory used to be, off of the back of the parking lot, and there's a pump. The pump collects the groundwater and pipes it back across the street to the treatment center, and it's treated and discharged into Naylor's Run. Okay, so it has to meet it has to meet actually drinking quality standards to be discharged into the stream. Because of all of the infrastructure that's in there, and you can see it. You could see some of the infrastructure right in the middle of their main drive. They have vaults, underground vaults. There's mechanical equipment in there for the operation of the pumps. There's equipment in there for the extraction and monitoring wells. So, and you'll see Tetra Tech vans through the site. Tetra Tech is a contractor that was hired by the Environmental Protection Agency. They're working now for the Commonwealth Department of Environmental Protection, and they do some monitoring there as well. And they do things like send us reports annually to say if the plume of contamination is shrinking. It's pretty heady stuff. But with all of that infrastructure right through the center of the property and going all the way back to the old railroad bed,
Yes.
it's almost impossible to find a site that's not right in somebody's backyard. And I mean right in somebody's backyard to build a parking garage. And a parking garage isn't a simple structure. You have to have ramps to advance. It's a pretty substantial structure. And trust me when I tell you, there was a dialogue about that. Because although 30 new parking spaces will make a pretty good dent in some of the parking issues that we're having, 100 parking spaces would be even better. So,
is it against township rules to have a parking garage?
no, the parking garage would be subject to the area and bulk regulations of the district. It's zoned light industrial. So it would have to meet the setback requirements, but it would also have to stay clear of that easement. And there's also a section of an underground stream that
So,
would have to be
so
avoided.
it could be built. There's no township ordinance against it. It could be built if somebody was willing to spend the money for it. Is that correct statement?
It depends on where it would be proposed to be built. I wouldn't build it in your backyard. I wouldn't build something
Thank you.
that's going to be multiple tiers that close to somebody's backyard. Putting something on at grade level next to somebody's property, something paved at grade, is a whole lot less intrusive and offensive than overhanging a 3-story structure.
But underground, is that at all possible?
Well, the underground would become very difficult because of the amount of underground infrastructure that's in place. Remember that there is a transformer, so there's I forget the size of the lines that run under there, but there are some pretty substantial
I understand, yes.
pico lines.
But possible if somebody would pay for it, though. Is that accurate?
I don't know how that could be done underground.
I see. Is the Y in Lansdowne, I don't know if that's the Garrett Road thing you were talking about, is that one closing too, which would bring even more people over here?
That's not ours.
Not
That's a
yours.
separate entity.
Yeah, it's not.
There's two separate entities
I
that
see.
operate the Ys in the region.
But if they do close, I mean, the rumor is that they're going to close
Yes.
and all the kids from over there will be shipped up to here in buses. Is that accurate? No. No, okay. And I'm thinking, the main thing here, beside the pollution and all the traffic, which really is horrendous, sir, and it is different than from before the Y. The one question is, without those houses there and without the tax money there, what's the number, the amount that we'll be losing in the township and thus have to pay more taxes, the rest of us, without those houses there? I keep hearing it, and we're asking the...
Township, it averages out to about $1 a house at most. You're looking at a minimal change in terms of township revenue.
I'm talking about the school tax.
If you please allow me to finish.
Yeah, let him talk. Go ahead. Dan.
As I said, to the township which receives a far smaller amount of your tax revenue. Mr. Gentili could give you the percentages, he knows them better than I do. But in terms of township revenue, it's about $1 or $1.20 per household at most, average throughout the township. It's a minimal amount. And that's no different from the revenue that was lost when Grace Chapel purchased a property on Eagle Road and other nonprofits purchase properties. We lose revenue, and then when they sell them, we gain revenue. That's something that happens annually. And so while there are a lot of issues with the Y, the tax revenue to me is not a central issue, because If we raise that, you have to raise it with every church that acquires or every nonprofit, or that sells, because property goes back and forth on the tax rolls all the time.
So it's only $1 for,
It's roughly, yeah, I had the exact number a couple months ago.
doesn't seem
but I
that
don't
way,
know.
like losing 2 houses.
Yes.
Sites
Yeah.
altogether.
Okay, and finally,
Joe, we have other people and we're trying
yeah,
to
one more
move this
thing.
along.
For the why, emphasis on physical activity and so on, wouldn't it be great if you guys helped us with the bicycle path back there, encouraged more of the people in the Y to ride bicycles to the Y and had more bicycle racks rather than making more cars in the area?
Lori, do you want to answer that one?
I will. The YMCA recently signed back some of its property rights for the leasehold to allow us to finish building out the trail. The trail is the old railroad bed. It's being constructed as a multi-purpose trail using some grant monies from DVRPC. And within the last month, the YMCA agreed to a lease amendment that gives us back rights to come back onto the property that we've already leased to them with a public trail.
And two points. One, we've been joined by the other Assistant Township Manager, Tim Denny, who deals with recreation, so I'm sure he's happy about that. And Commissioner Hall and I are on the Property Committee, and one of the ideas with the new township and municipal building was to use that trail to create essentially a triangle within the township and encourage more walking and other things, because people didn't even realize there was a direct trail from the stadium to what was then the bubblegum factory, because who's going to walk to the bubblegum factory?
I think, we've experienced this. I just want to say one thing. We have a terrible parking issue throughout the township. I know that it's been the why. I've dealt with a lot of, Mr. Sabatini will tell you, Belvedere and Ralston I've dealt with over the last year. We're dealing with a township-wide parking issue. Yes, this is a problem with the Y, but we are encouraging bike racks at all the SEPTA stations, because we've had so many problems with people parking at the SEPTA stations. And I just met with SEPTA the other day, and they're putting bicycle racks in anywhere that they can. And I drive by them in the morning, and they're full. These bicycle racks are full. So we do need to encourage that. We do need to do this trail. We really, really do. I'm sure that all of you are familiar, I hope you are, if you've ever seen the Radnor Trail. That was really contested for years because it runs right behind some residences. And I will tell you, as someone that works in real estate every day, now people, it's amazing how attitudes can change. Now the people that sell those houses say, you know what, you have the Radnor Trail right there. And when it was being, discussed and proposed, everyone said, oh, I can't have people walking behind my house. And now it's a selling point, and people love it. So what we're trying to do, the commissioners and our wonderful township, everybody here that does such an outstanding job, is we're trying to bring this entire community. We're all residents here, and we're surrounded by business. So we're trying to make it so that you can, be maybe at the library, walk to the township building, then walk over to the Y, because that's kind of where we're headed in this country. There's so much biking and walking. All of us are trying to do that. Is parking a huge issue? It absolutely is. There is no doubt about it. And I think that we have to work with the Y to try to move towards something really good for all of us. And we understand, believe me, the commissioners, we talk about it all the time with township officials and the police. The police work with it every day. We get, different issues in different blocks. So we want to do this, and I think that this meeting is so important for the Y to be able to say to you, you know what, maybe this, it's the anomaly. Like, this is a Y that we have to look at things differently. And all of us appreciate the philosophy of the Y. We grew up with it. I swam at a Y. We all did. Terrible bathing suits in those days, but we did, and it was cold too. I grew up in Maine. But it was really, really a wonderful place, and it still is. And I think that in the sense of community, that we all need to really think about what we can do so that this works for everyone. So that's my little speech, and we'll go on to the next. Are we done on this side of the room? Okay, here it goes.
Hi, I'm Rich Abraham, 143 Colfax Road, and sounds like I might be the only member of the Y that's here. It's good. It's going to be very difficult for the Y to solve their parking problem, even if they buy those two houses and put in another 30 spots. My suggestions, which nobody's going to like, and your members won't like, is there's a certain hours when there's just not enough parking. And there's a lot of people that could bike and could walk, but parking's free. So one thing they could think about doing, instead of having those parking attendants running around trying to point to spots that don't exist, is the prime time hours, when the lot's going to be full, you charge for parking.
I'm going to hold my head going on that one.
Now, I know. You know, what you could do is you could give members a break, like, $10 a month off, but it's going to be $1 a day to park. Okay? People that walk get a discount. People that bike. Some of your employees that I know that live like 3 blocks away that drive there now, they might not want to pay $1 a day. That'll help the traffic. It'll encourage biking. And it's proven to work everywhere. If you look around the township, there's not parking problems everywhere. Where there's meters and you charge, there's not a parking problem.
Except the library.
Dan, there are no meters in the library parking lot. I've suggested that. They should put in 15-minute parking and an hour parking with meters, and there'll be spots.
There's only 17 spots.
There's 17 spots. There'll be, at the right price, there'll be a spot. You want to address the tank?
Well, no.
And you pay?
No, I walk.
Hi, I'm Joe Sabatini. I live at 2120 Belvedere Avenue, and it's right on the corner of Ralston. And I feel like our area really took a big hit. They actually opened up our street with a pedestrian walkway, and it's become more than just a pedestrian walkway. It starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it goes right till midnight. It's, you name it, all kinds of characters. But anyway, what I really want to talk about, no more parking and traffic. I like to see it restored the way it used to be. 2-3 years ago, we had hundreds of trees taken down, and it's just it looks like a prairie out there now. It's terrible. It's terrible. 5 o'clock in the morning, we start with the alarm, with the beeps and the car alarms. 5 o'clock in the morning, you get about 100 of them. You know, you got to get up. It's unbelievable. And that goes right till 10 o'clock. The lighting is an issue. My house is just right directly back of the parking lot. And I talked to Michael about this several times. I would like to see those lights dimmed. I know they need security. I know funny things might go on back there at night. But the lighting inside the property is just outrageous. Big white, bright, low lights that just glow, you know. Big spotlights shining on the logo. We know it's the Y. It doesn't have to be on from 10 to 5 in the morning. We know it's the Y. You know, and then they have flags, 3 flagpoles. They got lights shining up on those things. Take the flags down. Give somebody a job. You know? And it's just been 2 years. It's real emotional for me right now. I've been here 35 years. I've just seen. It's great. Sometimes I like to see that the Buckman factory come back again. Yep. I really mean it. I know there's nothing wrong with the Y. They're a good organization. But I really think with all this that's going on, I just think it's a bad location for them. I have so many things I say, but I can't think of it anymore. And clean up that bioswale. That's a real. I have neighbors here that'll probably like to talk about that. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
My name's Kirk Anderson. I live at 149 Ralston Ave. My house is pretty much at the end of the parking lot, so the Y is my neighbor. And I just want to go on record that I do not want a parking structure put up. All right, that would destroy my view of anything. I've only been in the township for about a year. I just built a house and moved in back in April. My concerns, for what I'm seeing right now is the bioswale. Since I haven't seen it, and I checked on my house for the whole time it was being built for a year, for 2 years and has never been dry. Last year, we had a mosquito issue. I think we had West Nile. We got spray for West Nile in the area. And I have photos right now if the Y wants to look at them just to see what the condition is of that bioswale. It's never been dry. I have a 2-year-old. My neighbors have young children as well. Where I'm concerned if my daughter goes around the fence and falls into that, she could drown, okay, and other children as well. It should be dry. That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be dry after a couple hours, or I forget the amount of hours after it stops raining. So I was told that was going to be fixed. I don't see any progress whatsoever. And what also goes on is all the trash that's from the parking lot from the Y gets blown into that bioswale and also gets caught in all the weeds. So that's a disgrace. I also have photos of that. And it also gets blown on my property and my neighbors in the back, their property as well. So I'm picking up a lot of trash throughout my week, which I really didn't sign up for when I moved from Center City out to here. To be honest with you, I don't appreciate that at all. The other thing is the bollards. The bollards that I think that's what they're called. They're on the side of Ralston Ave, and I'm not sure why they were put on that side. Where I understand why they're there to impede, people driving through there, but they should go on the Y side, the Y parking lot side. I have 2 bollards that are pretty much right next to my parking or my actually driveway. So right then and there, I look out the window and I see 6 or 8 yellow bollards, and that really decreases my value of my property. I'm a member of the Y. I like the Y. You guys, the facilities are great and all that stuff. I don't really mind the parking lot. Like I said, I came from Center City, so I'm used to all that stuff. The traffic is an issue. I see that day in and day out at high peaks where people are just dropping off their children or anyone. They're using that street, going down Rawson Street, going to the dead end, sometimes coming up on my driveway to turn around and then going back out. And sometimes they fly down there, and I have a 2-year-old, and she likes to run around. I was out with her yesterday with Mr. Sabatini, and I'm constantly running around just making sure none of these cars are going down the street to hit her. I think that's all. I'd like to understand, I'd like to get feedback from the Y about the bioswale and also about the bollards. I know the traffic issue, that's a whole different thing, or it's going to take some time to figure that out, but I'd like to get some feedback regarding the bioswale and the bollards.
We have the civil engineers looking at that bioswale. We had some issues with that not draining the way it should have drained last year. We were waiting to see the plantings. They, took root to make certain that it was going to do that. It didn't do what it needed to do. So this spring they'll come back and take a look at that. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks we'll do that. I know they had a buddy who was the property manager had a service treated that throughout the year. The bollards I can't do anything about. The township required those bollards. The former fire marshal required those bollards there. Those were specifically lined out by the township. They wanted that to make that an emergency access point. We did that. So it's unfortunate.
Wrong size. By plan.
They were approved by the township engineer, unfortunately or fortunately, and that's what we did. You could say, I'm sorry?
Calls for 3 feet by 6 inches. They're 56 inches high. Make it the stall now.
Okay. I'd take a look at that, Joe, to be honest with you. I'll go back and take a look at that.
3 in the
It's been
middle
such a long
and 3
time.
feet, the knockdown ones.
Okay.
They're the ones that's all we really need. It's 3 knockdown.
Joe, can you just excuse me, how many bollards are there?
Yeah.
Just how many, if you know, Joe?
10.
10? Okay.
10.
This is just a suggestion too. We have down the Ardmore Avenue septic station has I guess it's a bioswale, the same thing. You probably know, Lori, but I drive by there every day, and so I monitor it myself because we've had the exact same issue that you're talking about. And the one thing I had them do last year, and maybe the Y can consider this, and it's really quite lovely, although I'm a big proponent of evergreens, but we put in 5 willow trees. And when I tell you that they love that water, and they are thriving, and I asked SEPTA specifically to put those in, and they did, and they're beautiful. Now, there's some standing water there today, and I always send them an email and say, you know, please send someone out, because we had the same issue last year at the West Nile, and I have them monitor that all the time. So I think that, you know, it's something that's an ongoing that I know it's aggravating, but when I drive home, I just look and I check, and you need to, if there's a point person at the Y, I have a point person at SEPTA that I just email them that night or the next morning and just say, I need someone out here tomorrow morning. And it honestly has gotten better. I had them dig up the whole thing last year and do it over because it was so bad. And we had trees, big old trees that were dying because there was so much water. So I feel like there are things that can be done and should be done. And I have visited the Sabatinis, and I've looked at Ralston, and I feel like we can do something. Particularly, I remember when the Y was being built and all those trees, I went over and visited before I was commissioner and spoke to some of the neighbors, and there were many, many trees that came down. You can put up big trees. We all do it. So I feel like this is something that, you know, if we can get a plan, we can address it, but obviously I need to go through Lori and the township engineer.
So regarding the bollards, so the Y can't do anything about that because that was in the plan. Is there any, I guess, opportunity to move those bollards to in front of the parking lot in the Y? Because if they're in front of the parking lot in the Y, they're not intrusive to the neighbors.
What I'm hearing, though, from what Joe's already said, that the bollards that were installed don't even meet the spec on the plan. So we're just going to go back and revisit the number and the height. So I've made some notes as everybody was speaking. I've made notes about the lighting, about revisiting the lighting to see what can be done to adjust it, especially after 10 p.m. There's, you know, there should be a way we could knock that down to just some security level lighting that would reduce that. And that shouldn't be a problem at all.
And on a second note, or final note.
We have a lighting control device within the building. So Buddy will go back, he'll look at that, he'll look at some reprogramming. But just to warn you, there are certain security levels that is required within the township. So we'll look at those. If there are lights which we think are intrusive closer to the neighboring property lines, if we need to put baffles on those, we'll take a look at that, but it all depends on what the requirements are within the township. We'll go back and take a look at the lights that are on the sign, Joe, and you know, Buddy's going to take a look at the lights on the inside to see how he can control those better. Well, you know, we'll work on that and hopefully we can get to a resolution.
Just, well, two things. One, who's my point contact for the YMCA about the bioswale?
Well, is there a person that you have that directly?
I don't have a card with me, but I'll give you my information, and you can gotta go through one of these guys working on it.
These are all the photos, just to give you kind of an idea what's going on there. I love your idea about the trees. I think trees would help actually dampen the noise of the cars in the morning too as well. I hear that, you know, I'm up around that time, but I do hear that. And I do hear it at night where when the Y is closing down, you have usually a group of individuals who are a little loud, and I can hear that in my house.
I think if we could do a mix of evergreens and then put some for the water absorption, you know, come up with something.
I'm all for trees.
I am too. I love them. I mean, we all love them, but they really can be so helpful.
Catherine Frank, Belvedere Avenue. And speaking of trees,
You
Eagle
speak
and
up a little?
Lawrence.
Even with the mic, it's hard.
Oh, sorry, Catherine Frank, Belvedere Avenue. Speaking of trees, it's Earth Day, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the tree at the corner of Eagle and Lawrence. If you take the houses down, will that tree come down? Because it's a pretty tree, and it's big. It's a nice evergreen, and I didn't know if that was part of the plan.
Well, before the two houses were even on the plan for, to be acquired for parking, the township had plans with the YMCA to make some improvements at that intersection, and that has not yet taken place. Some of those things include linking the two traffic signals together and improving the radius at the intersection. When you do that, you have to relocate that traffic signal. And the relocated traffic signal was going into a portion of that tree. And with the couple that reside there now, we had agreed to do some things to try and preserve. It required us to trim back the tree, but preserve the tree. The township has been pushing the YMCA to do some additional lane improvements at the intersection, though, just to get more of the vehicles from the new signal to the traffic signal at Lawrence and Eagle Road, because that's where everything sort of backs up. And a lot of that has to do with how darn courteous you all are. When we put the traffic signal in, people are still stopping to give courtesy gaps to people who have a red light. And instead of going on Eagle Road, when they have a green light, they will stop and let somebody on Hillcrest turn in, who has a red light, turn in. And there's such a restricted queue between the two signals, because we've not adjusted the timing yet, that it actually makes it worse. It's backing things up even worse. So one of the things we wanted to do, and we have been asking the Y to work with us on this, is to widen the road. And with that road widening, it definitely takes out that tree. Okay. Now the Y is required to do a landscape design with this, and they've been working on a landscape design. The immediate neighbor was really very vocal about wanting to make sure that they preserved some privacy for themselves. And there's an enhanced landscape berm and landscaping next to the first house on Lawrence Road. And the plan did call for a tree at the corner, but I can't say what kind of tree it is. I don't believe it was an evergreen. I thought it was deciduous, right? Michael? Yeah. So the answer to your question is, unfortunately, yes.
Biker, West Hillcrest, you're talking about capping the membership, particularly if that Lansdowne one goes down, could be disaster. Does the township have any control over the membership? Can they get into a capping situation from the township? It's strictly...
No.
It's a legal issue.
Yeah, we can't control any other entity's membership, whether it's the Y or any other gym or anything like that. That's not something that's within our legal purview.
They don't care about it.
Barbara O'Neill, 2728 Prescott Road. Before in previous meetings, we knew we would just be picking up a whole lot of traffic because of the light being put at Hillcrest and Eagle. And it was mentioned at that time that some traffic surveys would be done a few months after it opened. So I was just wondering, does that give this area any relief? Prescott is getting all of the traffic now, east and west. I'm not saying they'll all go to the Y. I'm a member of the Y and I love it. They're cutting through, probably to avoid the big intersection up there. And is there anything else that could be done? Possibly some more stop signs to slow the traffic down. I don't know.
I was actually surprised traffic didn't come up sooner, but hi, I'm Jen Walsh, I'm with McMahon Associates. And yes, referring to the surveys that you were referring to, the Y was required to do a pre-development study and a post-development study. So we were asked to go out about 6 months before the Y opened, which was October of 2013, correct, Michael? So we were asked to go out and do our traffic counts in May of 2013 under the scope that was approved by the township. We counted the intersection of Eagle and Lawrence along with the intersection of Eagle and Hillcrest. And then we also did ATR counts, which is basically like 24-hour counts. We laid road tubes down to get the daily traffic on about 10 or 12 roadways that were identified, and I know Prescott was one of them. We were then required to do a post-development study. So 6 months after the Y opened, we were to go out, and it was also supposed to be at the very same time of year, because depending on the time of year, traffic's a little bit different. So 6 months before, 6 months after, we're capturing the traffic at the same time of year, about a year later. What we found was that traffic wasn't much different. I know people are not going to believe that, but at the intersections of Eagle and Lawrence and the Eagle and Hillcrest, traffic was very similar. Now, I can even say that when I got the first results, I'm a township resident. I travel Eagle Road corridor every day on my way to work and on my way back. When I got the first results, I thought to myself, you know what, I better go out and do another count because I want to double check and make sure that this isn't an anomaly, it's one day, and again, people aren't going to believe me when I tell them traffic isn't much different. We went out the next week, again in May, and the traffic was almost exactly the same at both of those intersections. So I'm not saying that the cut-through traffic doesn't exist. I know it existed before. What I do want to say is that all the improvements that were identified in our traffic study have not been put in place. So it's very difficult to give a comprehensive evaluation of how things are going to occur once those improvements are placed. The reason cut-through traffic happens is because they want to avoid Eagle Road, right? Well, when we make improvements along Eagle Road and at the intersection, we've been working very closely with the township for about a year now. We're hoping that that traffic will have an easier time traveling along Eagle Road and will divert from the residential roadways. So yes, we did those studies. All the improvements that were identified, as Michael pointed out, one of them was an improvement at the intersection of Eagle and Darby, where we did want to put a right turn lane in. Some people might not think that made an improvement, but there's a very high level of right turns to that intersection. If you're adding capacity and adding a lane, it would have made a difference. The intersection of Eagle and Lawrence has sort of been not happening as quickly as we would like because we're working through other issues, and we really want to make the best improvement we can. And actually, the time is actually in our favor because I think Lori can speak to it too, that even though it's taking a little bit longer, we're finding that we might be able to do some better improvements to lengthen the length of that right turn lane and the left through lane that occurs on the southbound approach. In addition, we're going to be restriping the northbound approach to provide a short, like 75-foot left turn lane to facilitate traffic a little bit easier. So although the improvements have not happened as quickly as we would have liked, I think we're going to be able to make better improvements along that, at that intersection, which will help the flow of traffic along that corridor. And Lori mentioned we will be interconnecting the signals, so the whole intersection of Eagle and Lawrence will be upgraded with all new signal equipment, all new pedestrian accommodations, and we will be interconnecting both of those signals. So they'll be able to kind of, I use the term, speak to one another and facilitate the flow of traffic between them a little bit more efficiently than what's happening right now.
How about bicycles?
The bicycles, I mean, we haven't accommodated, there's no room out there to accommodate any kind of bike lane or anything additional. I know we're improving the trail to provide access to the Y, and that has been brought up about bicycle access, but right now, that's not something that we're accommodating within the design that we're doing.
But you're redoing the sidewalks.
The sidewalks will be done, yes. Yes. Yeah.
The traffic might not have increased, but the way the traffic can flow, you get the green light and you can't move because the other people don't have the green light, so you'll sit at a light 2 or 3 times longer. It's not that the traffic necessarily increased. But if we're widening Eagle Road, why are we talking the side that the Y's on? If we take away some of the Superfund site, who loses? I don't think the Superfund cares if they lose 6 feet or 8 feet to a lane.
That land is privately owned. The land where Swiss Farm is, where Zach's is privately owned. So that's not the Superfund site or any,
I
so
thought the
we have.
Superfund site confiscated
It's
that.
part of, it's situated on the Superfund site, but it is privately owned. So you have to deal with a private owner who of course wants compensation if the owner is willing.
Eminent domain. Doesn't that
We
work?
went down that.
Yeah,
We've been through a lot, but-
Can I just
Yeah,
say
let
too?
Lori.
We did actually do a concept plan. Panoni Associates is the township engineer, and they did a concept.
Sorry. They did a concept plan that included exactly what you're talking about because we thought it was a great idea as well. And we thought that it would give us a nice opportunity to put a longer right turn queue in and get some of the through movements through a lot better and just facilitate the traffic movement even before the light was up at the YMCA, before the YMCA was fully constructed. And what we found was in order to be able to get those full width lanes and preserve those various turn movements, we actually were taking out Zach's. We would have so impacted their parking that we would have, it would have cost the business. So we did. They're not selling. Bear in mind that that's one big tract owned by one person, okay? And we did have a conversation with that person, and they wanted way more than what that little strip of land was going to be worth. They wanted to be compensated for lost income over the next 30 years on that, because think also about the configuration of that site. If you've ever been on that site, there's a driveway in the back. If you come out of Swiss Farms and you take the driveway, you go down a steep embankment, and there's nowhere to relocate the parking for that facility. So it's either out front or it ain't happening, you know?
And if I could just, for people who know me, know that I probably spend 2/3 of my time dealing with traffic as a commissioner. I have learned more about traffic than I ever want to know. But I met with both the Y's traffic engineer and Dave Panoni, the township's engineer. And the township engineer made recommendations that were essentially what the Y's engineer had proposed, which included potentially widening Lawrence Road, widening the intersection of Lawrence and Eagle, and changing the traffic flow up at the corner where Grace Chapel is. None of the owners was willing to cooperate with that because changing the intersection here would have also meant eliminating the slight left jiggle that you have to do that makes that such a treacherous intersection and things like that. So that's a problem, and I agree that the traffic flow is different. My office is on Eagle Road. There are days where I cannot get out of my own parking lot, but the problem is the traffic on Hillcrest now backs up significantly, and I used to, if I went on Hillcrest, there'd be 1 or 2 cars. Now there's 10 cars, so I see it, and I drive the ward pretty much every day. So it's a problem. I don't know that without the solutions on Eagle, it's going to get much better. People aren't going to stop driving. Lawrence Road backs up usually to Maryland every day just for people trying to get on the Blue Route. Because we live in an area where we are the only place along the Blue Route where it has an exit into a residential area. And for Fourth Ward residents, you've heard me say this again and again and again, but we live in an area where every major road that leads to the Blue Route goes through the Fourth Ward. Many of them go through Steve's Ward, the First Ward, Westchester Pike, Lawrence Road, Eagle Road, 320, Ellis, everything leads to the Blue Route. And it's we weren't, these neighborhoods weren't built for houses with 3 cars. And I don't know the solution. I know the Y is trying. I don't know that there's an answer for that. I think the parking is more potentially solvable than the traffic, but I'm almost ready to give up on all of it because it's hard. But that's why we have the dialogue tonight to try to, so the Y understands there are issues. They've been a very good neighbor, but neighbors don't always get along perfectly, and we're hoping to, make it better. That's why I appreciate greatly that you're here. I extended the invitation. I expected 1 or 2 people. We have many more. Are there any more questions or comments about the why? Typically, these meetings go till 8:30, but we're going to go a little longer. But I'd like to let the why people go. We could take a 2-minute break and see if anyone's left after this. So we have 3 more questions. We'll take those, or 4. And at that point, if the why has anything else it wants to say, and then we can take a break for a moment, let them go home. The rest of us can stay.
Michelle Alvarez again. In addition to the possibility for the residents on the streets around the Y of getting permit parking on their streets so that Y patrons aren't parking and blocking their parking on their street, I would like to recommend they have a note right on red at any time coming out of the Y parking lot. Jane commented on that, and I meant to say it earlier. And at the very least, with the Hillcrest, no right on red at a certain time of the day. I happen to keep in mind that I don't want to rear end anybody, even if someone rear ends me, so I don't bumper to bumper down Eagle Road. And if you don't bumper to bumper, somebody cuts in front of you coming out of that parking lot. And when I took my driver's license a bazillion years ago, you're supposed to keep 1 car length for every 10 miles an hour. You can't do that in today's world because there's too many people pushing in. But if we could have a no turn on red ever coming out of that Y parking lot, and limit the time of day for right on reds out of Hillcrest, you'd get the flow moving way better than the backup.
We have a limit on right on red here at Darby.
If Lori,
Yeah,
I
at a
think-
certain time. I did have a conversation with the traffic engineer, and I'm
Well, she
sorry.
has that mic.
Yeah, I did have a conversation with Ms. Walsh, the traffic engineer, and she said, obviously she'd have to look to see what impact it would have on Hillcrest if that happens, but I agree. And like I said, you have to stop being so darn courteous, folks, and letting people in there.
Yeah, and I did. Steve, Commissioner D'Amelio also wanted to say something, but do you want to wait for the residents or speak now?
I'd rather than
Okay,
go
but
first.
I wasn't trying to.
No, it's okay, rather than go first. Well, I'd like to say something for the Y leaves.
Okay.
Just a quick request to the Y. I know you talked about these gentlemen and so forth that lived on that side of the Y. We live behind the Y. If you could do something to take a look at the activities there after hours, and we're talking about Y activities, the trash, things like that. We've talked about the banging of the trash dumpsters at 1 o'clock in the morning. Also the lighting back there. I know you need to have lighting for safety reasons, and it's safe for us if there's some lighting back there, but could there be a way to kind of reduce that? So that's just a request from us. It's kind of annoying at night at times, especially in the spring when you got your windows open. The second thing is living on Lawrence Road, the new parking that's going to be up there at Lawrence and Eagle. We really have some reservations about traffic on Lawrence, and access to that parking, from our perspective, really needs to come from the Y, not from Lawrence Road. Simply because supposedly that's the quiet side of Lawrence. And if you've got people, even employees who are parking there, and they get there and it's full, they're going to park on a side street. So we really don't have too much of an issue with why people parking on Lawrence Road there. There's only parking on one side anyway, but those are just a couple requests from the people who live back there. So.
Yeah, my question was about the 2 properties next door, and it came up before Mr. Perlish talked about the taxes that won't be coming in. The property right next to you, the one that has the sign that's sitting there, is about $5,200 a year. Not all of that goes to the township. About 2/3 of it goes to the school district, and the adjoining property, it'd be 2/3 of their taxes go to the school district. So just taking the 2 of them, there's about $10,000 in taxes that aren't collected, and about a little over $6,500 doesn't go to the school district anymore. Yet our school district has to go out of town for a swim team. Seems to me it would be a nice gesture for our school to be able to practice there. I know at the Y over on Garrett Road, they've allowed the school to practice there, the swim teams. I've been
involved in swimming here for about 30 years. And you have a beautiful pool there. I went in to look at it. I know you have morning swimmers there. And we have probably 30, 40 kids on the swim team. This is one of the few townships around that's had multiple Olympic swimmers. So we've had a big tradition. We have two pools, outside pools, and we have a lot of people going to other pools in the area. So I think it would be a good idea as a trade-off for the money that you're not going to be paying in taxes to give access to the swim team for a nominal amount. I mean, I'm not saying free. Maybe they could do it for $1,000 a year, but at least it would come back into the township and allow them to also use it for the swim meets as well.
I can certainly address that. Before we opened our facility in October of 13, I personally met with the athletic director and the swim coach. We walked the site. We told them that if we ever had a swim team, it would only be the high school. We have a great relationship with the school district. They decided they're happy where they're at the Haverford College, I believe they're at. They
practice at St. Joe's, they practice at Haverford. And they don't give away those spots in the morning.
They chose to stay where they were at. We invited them in, we walked, there were issues with our deck, it wasn't big enough for patrons to watch. We had the dialogue with them, we told them that if we were gonna have a swim team, it would be with them, and they chose to stay where they were at, so.
Well, what about practice in the morning then? You're not gonna have people out there watching except for coaches. And they practice around 5:30 in the morning.
They didn't take us up on the offer. Well,
You talk to them about practice?
we talked to them about all of it, yeah,
Why
yeah.
don't you talk to them again? Since you're getting these two spots and you're not paying taxes on them.
If they wanna have that conversation, I'll have it, absolutely.
I would disagree.
Yep.
I think there's one other person.
One other person? Okay.
Oh, and you hadn't been here, so.
Oh, Peter Rickman. I was just wondering, when the Y was first put in, wasn't the parking based on the membership?
No, parking isn't based on membership. Parking is based on square footage.
Of the building, okay.
Anyone else in the audience? And then Commissioner D'Amelio wanted to speak.
Okay.
You wanted to say something, Steve?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Siegel, for inviting me, and thank you for the residents for coming out, and thanks for the Y for being here. I understand this is not an easy situation, but a couple of issues. One, let me start with the pool. When the president, Mr. Flynn, first came before this board with the proposal, and we were thinking about building the creek, he made it clear that if we put a pool at the creek, then you would not build at the Y. I think that had we built that pool at the creek, it would probably take some of the traffic that's occurring there now and be up at the creek. I don't agree with you, sir, saying that you did not think or you weren't going to close the Ardmore Y because Mr. Flynn stood here and said he was not going to close the Y. Yet in an article, and you can look it up online, he said that you guys were discussing closing the Ardmore Y. Yet when he came before this board, he said that that was not going to happen. Now, I'm sure if we knew that, that may have played into some of the decision making, but obviously it didn't occur. In that article, it also said that this is the fastest growing Y in the country. In the country. That is amazing. And if not for the commissioners that are here tonight and the residents being here, how would you have addressed that? You have to know that that's affecting this community. You have to know it's affecting parking. There's no way, if you know you have the fastest growing Y in the country, and in the last, when you first opened, in those first 6 months, you made close to $7 to $10 million. And so you had to know, and you have to know now that something's occurring. You know, for the fact that the commissioners had to have this meeting, the residents are concerned. I live in the first ward, so it's certainly not as bad as where the Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Siegel live. But obviously, it's right there. The end of the first ward is right there, and the traffic situation is horrendous. On top of that, a bus route was added because of the Y. That created a problem because they put a stop in one of the highest accident areas in the township, I think, at Maryland and Eagle. And we had a, and SEPTA, thank God, helped us, and we had it moved, but still it moved closer, I guess, towards the Y. So I don't know where we go from here, but since you're making that revenue, I suggest you use some of that revenue to come up with some decision making on how we're going to deal with this. Because if you're the fastest growing Y in the country, this can't continue. If you have so many members, I don't know how many members can exercise in a facility. I think we don't have a fire marshal here, but there's only supposed to be so many people in a building. How many people do you have in exercising in that building at one time? Doesn't that create a danger? And saying that you're not going to cap it, and I've heard the same rumors that the Garrett Y may close, and where are they going to go? They're going to come to Haverford. We can't, there's no way we can handle that. We can't handle it now, we can't handle it in the future if that Y does. I know it's not the same, I know it's not the same with you guys, but it's run by different Y, is that correct? But still, if it closes, you're going to have residents from that area coming here. So again, I don't know where we go from here, but thank you for having this meeting. And I think you need to start focusing on some resources and trying to figure out where we go from here, because this is affecting a community. I've always said, and I'll end it here. I've always said, sometimes you look at a community and say, what's changed the community? I mean, there could be residents that just get so fed up that they can't park. They can't have families over, that they're going to leave. And then that affects the tax base, and that affects the residents. We don't want that to happen, so we need you, and I think you're taking this very seriously. You should, because this is a real problem. But thank you all for allowing me to speak, and thank you, Commissioner.
Do you have anything else you want to say, Michael, or anyone, or not?
So why, would like to wrap up?
Or we have a plan for where we go from here?
Okay, well, from day one, we've said that we've seen communities operate without YMCAs. We haven't seen a YMCA that operates without a community. We've answered the call to every step of the way. I've been at every single meeting except for one meeting for the past 5 years. So I know what have been said and who have said what. I know what I've done. Nobody knew that we were going to close the Ardmore YMCA. It wasn't until I met with the zoning officer and members of the zoning board that they said that what we proposed wasn't going to happen. But we've passed that. We've just got to work towards trying to resolve the issues that are here. We're looking for the support, both the township and the residents, to create the additional parking spaces at those two properties that we're proposed to buying, to help to make that corridor a lot better. And Jen just told you as a resident and as a traffic engineer that what she's doing, and the township engineer has agreed to that in instances more than one, that is going to help traffic, the movement of traffic somewhat. We've heard your cry in regards to the bioswale. We're going to respond to that. We've heard your cry in regards to the lights, Joe. We're going to take care of that. I've listened to Commissioner Hall in regards to her thought process in the trees. We're going to look at that with the civil engineer and the township engineer to make certain we get those resolved. We'll look back, and I've been working very closely with Lori and her team and the township engineer in regards to those bollards. We look at that to make certain they're within specification. I think they are. And whatever comes up, we've worked closely with the commissioners and we've worked closely with the township engineer and staff, and we'll continue to do so to ensure that we try and resolve as many issues as we can. We can't solve them all because traffic comes from wherever it comes from. Not every traffic that passes through here is the Y traffic. The Y does add to the issues that were here, but a lot of the traffic is not just Y traffic. We responded to Commissioner Siegel's response when he said we need to get traffic counts done within the Hillcrest area and surrounding roads. We work with the police officials and the commissioners and the township in regards to making certain we got the streets that they wanted us to do those surveys on. And we did that before and after. You heard what Jen said in regards to that. It has changed, not much. So we're going to continue to work. Dave is here. His door is always open. We'll respond as best as we can to make it somewhat amicable as we can and somewhat more, I don't know, comfortable for you guys. That's as best as we can do, and we hope you guys will work with us in terms of making that happen.
What we would like to do.
We were just, Commissioner Siegel and I were just saying that we'd like to take some of these suggestions and ideas and thoughts and obviously meet with Lori and the Y and see what we can do. That I think that there are many things that are doable, and the traffic issues, all of these are in play, but we need to move it forward. And Commissioner Siegel and I would like to revisit, have you come back and, you know, pick a date this fall where we can all kind of come back and see where we are and what's happening, so that you, the residents, feel better about what's happening, and the Y is addressing things, and we'll know a little bit more about the parking and the traffic and that intersection. This intersection here is an issue too. I don't know what we're going to do about that at Darby and Eagle, but Lori's looking at that all the time, and it really would increase the flow of traffic. I have to tell you that I had the strangest experience this morning. I had a home inspection in Malvern. I live here in Ardmore. And I drove out 252, and I've never driven out there at 7 a.m. in the morning. And the new Episcopal campus, I was in a parking lot on 252. I sat for a half an hour on 252, which you couldn't imagine that you could sit that long there. And it's just when you have these new structures come into town, and that is a beautiful, fabulous campus, but I was astounded at the level of traffic. And you know, we have to work through these growing pains, and I think that we so appreciate the residents coming out tonight, because we get little individual emails, and we have to, you know, address them with the Y and see what they can do to help all of you residents.
Our meeting isn't over. I assume there are people here who have other issues other than the Y. We've deferred, and I appreciate your patience. So we are going to continue on those issues as well. I would just want the Y people to head out. Excuse me?
If I can make a comment for the Y people. Go ahead.
We had said this would be the end, that's why. We are breaking for 2 minutes. More people than we normally have for a meeting. So that's good. Okay. Now it's the traditional part of the meeting that would have started almost 2 hours ago. But hopefully this won't go 2 hours. This is the time where if you have questions, issues that you want to address with township officials, Assistant Township Manager Denny had to leave, but we can always relay things regarding him. Related to his areas, primarily parks and recreation. But if you have any questions, obviously you're here for a reason, and this is your chance. You have, the township officials to talk to them directly. Okay, Mary.
Yeah.
We'll start on the left again.
Yes, I live on Rockland Road, Mary Hediger, 142 Rockland Road, and I want to know what the police are doing about enforcing the parking, the new parking restrictions that they put up, because we are getting a lot of people on West Hillcrest. I almost got hit today because West Hillcrest, that turn coming around from the light, was down to one lane with people parking. There was a landscaping van on one side. There were people parked, and they were wide parking all the way along that curve. And people can't see. There's 2 hour parking, but those people were there for hours.
What street are you referring to about the parking?
West Hillcrest.
West Hillcrest.
The part that comes around the curve, it's going, it was just, signage just went up to make it 2 hour parking. And people are parking there for way longer than 2 hours at a time.
Well, we'll start tomorrow. We'll start monitoring that.
Let's hope.
We will. We'll be there tomorrow, and we'll start chalking tires and seeing how many cars stay there
If
for over
not,
2 hours.
I mean, I don't know, why 2 hours? Why so
I'm
long?
not sure, Joe, Lieutenant, are you sure, any idea where that came from?
I mean, that doesn't make any, that 2-hour parking doesn't make any sense.
Part of that was for the businesses that were there. You have the one gentleman, I think he since left, he has an accounting business over there. Part of his issues were people parking out in front of his business. So what we did was we restricted the parking to 2 hours. That way, we're
Well,
not.
what about the mechanics? Wait a minute, what about the mechanics that are parking there who work at that car place, Brendan's or whatever? They're there all day, and they park right up all the way along, going up to the paddock park,
I
along
said
that line.
we'll be
They're
there.
there all day.
We'll be there tomorrow.
Yep.
And we'll monitor it every day until we get it straight. Usually it only takes a few days to get there and write some parking tickets, and the problem goes away. But we'll take a look at it.
And don't hesitate to pick up the phone also if you see, obviously, any violators. We'd ask that throughout the entire township. A lot of times, our officers are out doing other things, and so they're if these things are happening.
The officers are very frequently in that turnaround up at Paddock Park, reading the newspaper at 8 o'clock in the morning when those people are parking there. So yes, I'd like to see what they're doing.
Well, we actually have computers in the vehicles. We actually monitor our police officers. We know where they are. We know when they sit, and we actually have a paperless system now in our vehicles. So although sometimes it appears that our officers may be reading the paper, they're actually not doing that. They're doing reports. All our reports are computerized, and we're a paperless system. So they're obviously not driving the vehicles and writing those reports. They have to pull over safely to do that. Thank you.
And the other thing, if you see traffic parking issues, if you email me, Commissioner Hall, people who deal with me know, the best, really the only way to quickly communicate with me is email, because I live with technology. You email me, the police or whomever in the township needs to know. They will get that information regardless where I am, unless I'm like in a court hearing or something, because I send it immediately and they respond. And I know you have the same.
I have people send me pictures.
It's lightning fast.
Cars that are parked,
So-
and particularly trucks, landscaping trucks or electric trucks or whatever. And people send me pictures, and then I just, I have a certain time of day that I have to sit down and do everything because I'm out all night. But we send them over, and the police and Lori and Larry and everyone always react as quickly as possible. They really do.
So, yeah, don't hesitate to email us, because, and that's at least with me, I can't speak for any other commissioner. If you have an immediate problem, if you have email, which most people do, that is far and away the best way to reach me, because I do respond, to every email, and I have every email, and phone calls are harder for me because I don't get home till late, and I don't like to call anyone back after 9, and unfortunately I get home a lot late. The dangers of running multiple businesses. Next, Joel, and then.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the meeting. Joel Perlish. So I believe in freedom of speech. I think it's a very important thing here in America. Is there anything that can be done about the size of the sign on Lawrence Road? Or all those crosses that look like a cemetery there?
I can start out by saying that we received many complaints about the content, which we will not react to. We received a complaint about the visibility at the intersection, which we did react to. Joe Celia from the Code Enforcement Office, together with one of the police officers, and I don't remember who you...
Officer Barney from Special Operations.
Thank you. Went out and measured off the site triangle that's provided for in the code. And that's why you saw some of those crosses moving back. You'll notice they changed location. It was just to get them out of the right-of-way and to clear the site triangle. Now, I believe that there is still one sign, because I had a conversation with Mr. Celia today, and it's not the big sign. it's the little sign that says about abortions that's still in the site triangle. So that will have to be relocated out of the site triangle. If it were in a public right-of-way, we would just take it. But it's not. The big sign is okay, but I did have a conversation with the property owner in that case and say, I need to find out a little bit more information about that sign, because it was erected as a decoration for a holiday, and it remains. And his reaction about, well, doesn't, shouldn't God bless all of us, couldn't we all use that? I'm not going there with him. All I'm going to say is we allow those signs to be erected without a permit if they are done as part of a decoration for a nationally recognized holiday. So without, I can't regulate it if it's a freedom of speech issue. But without it being an obstruction at the visibility of the intersection, I am hesitant to try and even address it. I have spoken to him about it, about taking it down. The holiday is over, take it down. The next holiday comes along, put it back up. I don't care,
I understand, I agree with everything you said. The size of the sign is okay? Could anybody then
It's out
put
of-
a sign that size on their lawn?
There was one court case, and I forget what state it was in, but somebody put up this ginormous, is the only way I could describe it, huge, like a billboard almost, because they didn't like the county sheriff. And they put up like this big giant sign about the county sheriff being a crook and an idiot, and all of these horrible inflammatory remarks about the county sheriff. But it was that person, and when the county had gone after the person, I'm not sure if it was the sheriff's office, but somebody did, and he took them to court, and he had he won. He had the right to put this really horrible message up on this gigantic sign. So what I'm going to say to you is, if it doesn't cause a safety issue, I am hesitant to try and ask someone to remove it.
And I did ask, even though I'm an attorney, and I know First Amendment law, because the First Amendment I'm very passionate about. I'm the only commissioner. I know there was one other commissioner for very different reasons who voted against our current sign ordinance because I thought certain restrictions on political signage weren't constitutional. And our solicitor came back with an opinion which I put into my newsletter that simply says we can't regulate any kind of sort of political or speech that's protected. And I have received in the last week more phone calls and more emails about signs and offensive nature to certain people. And I certainly don't necessarily agree with the underlying sentiment, but it is his right to have those signs. It is his right to make his opinions, to offend or to try to do whatever the purpose is. I have no idea what the purpose is. And it's unfortunate. And the township has tried to do what it can do. This is a difficult situation. There's nothing that prevents anyone else from expressing their views on whatever properties may have signs that offend you or displays. Thankfully, for the most part, commissioners, we deal with YMCAs and we deal with trash and things. We don't have to deal with these types of issues. No one elects me because of my views on any of those issues. Thank God I don't have to. That's not what we do. But it's a difficult situation. We've talked to the township. They've heard probably more complaints than I do because people typically go right there. But I can tell you in the last week, I've spent more time on the phone with constituents upset. It's a block from a school. So there are issues. People don't like having to take their children home and trying to explain what some of the signage means. But it's, but a legal battle would almost certainly be futile.
What about the ugly little signs that you see along the side roads? I think they sneak out at night. They do put them in like 1-800 mattress or that kind of sign.
I'll tell you what I did.
You call him.
Meet the mic. That's right.
If those signs are on the right of way, pretty much like on the dog walk, they're illegal. We have them removed. We have a zero tolerance for any real estate signs, any political signs, any sign whatsoever that's on the dog walk or what we consider in the right-of-way. They're removed. We actually have our staff, our police department, our public works department. We remove. We feel that we have that probably 95%. In fact, one of our commissioners who just left, Mr. D'Amelio, was upset because 3 of his signs were removed over the weekend. But we have a zero tolerance. It goes for the police department, the fire departments. So we do remove them as quickly as we possibly can.
Just take a picture and send it to
You don't even need, you call my office. In fact, I'll go out and pick it up because I'm the #1 sign collector in the township.
Pick them up all the time, even when I'm off, I'm driving down the street.
And then I call them.
They're so ugly.
No, the 1-800 numbers, I call them and I tell them that they can't put them there and they say, oh, we didn't put them there. Yeah.
And we do take photos of them, and when the citations go, when they go to district court, they're receiving citations. So we do have a better handle on it. So but it's a continued effort by all our staff. So, but we're on top of it. Thank you.
I have one other question.
Okay, I want to try to keep this organized. Any first row. Otherwise we're not going to go back and forth.
Paul Ryan at 10 Colfax Road, and it's a traffic question, and it's based on an observation. I think we're getting a little bit more traffic on Colfax Road, perhaps since it's a parallel road to Eagle. The road that's between us and Eagle is West Hillcrest, and they have a sign that's one way, do not enter, from 4 to 6, which is a nice idea. Because that's when a lot of the traffic is actually cutting through, I think. And Decatur is one street on the north side of us, and they have a no-through traffic sign. They also have a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I guess my question is, how do you make a determination as to what streets have signage that discourages people coming through? And what about the speed limits? And would it be better for us to have not knowing the answer to my question, better to have like a consistent speed limit for some of the roads?
You're correct. There should be a consistent speed limit. A lot of those signs grew over the past 50 years. Since the current administration has been, we've tried to get a handle on signs. And when a commissioner has a constituent goes to commissioner and asks for a sign, they come to us and we research, a traffic sign that is. The 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on side streets is unenforceable. The speed limit is 25 miles an hour on a side street. We cannot reduce that. Those signs were put there years ago. We're just not taking them down. It's somewhat of a deterrent. We're not going to take it down. No, we won't. But it gives people a false sense of security that I'll call the police. Cars are speeding. We do surveys. We actually count the cars, and in fact, there's no speeding. So as far as 15, it's an illegal sign. It'll stay where it is. The do not enter at certain times of the day, they are, if coming off a state highway, they're strictly regulated by PennDOT. So if you restrict traffic on one street, it just pushes it to the next street, and the next street, and the next street. And it's a domino effect. So our stand usually is no, we don't accept that because you drive, I drive, and we all look for back streets to avoid traffic, especially Eagle Road. I live parallel Monroe Road, I go through the same thing. So if the request comes in, we'll do the traffic survey. If we feel it's one and there is an issue, we'll do enforcement first, and we'll do our best to remedy the traffic situation. But it's not just Colfax, it is all over. We all know that.
And that's also for the residents, correct me if I'm wrong, that's also, if you have a do not enter, that goes for the residents.
Yeah, you
who live
can't
on
go in
that street
either.
as well.
Yeah, it's not an exception.
Yeah, invariably, where those are, and I get a complaint, it's a resident who got pulled over.
They're usually the first ones to get the ticket. When they say it's not, it doesn't affect me.
And when they regulate one street, and I had one street in the ward off of Ardmore Avenue that we put restrictions on. Right. I've probably taken more grief over that from everyone else around, and they spent a lot of time studying it and said it was justified. If they don't say it's justified, I won't support, none of us would support it anymore. Years ago, it was a very different world in this township. So we do listen to what the police recommend, and if they're not going to recommend it, I'm not going to suggest it as an ordinance. And I don't think any of us does anymore. First row, second row.
Peter Hickman, 134 Marple Road. One thing is, do we have any idea when Marple's going to get paved?
I asked that tonight. That's the second most popular email I get after signs at Lawrence and some other intersection.
And the second thing is, between 136 and 134, there was a drain there, and now that the golf course has reconfigured the way the drainage comes off the golf course, we get all the drainage coming down Marple Road. It pools right around that one place, and it used to go under the road, but now it flows over the top. So I don't know whether, whose responsibility that is, township, state? Whatever.
That's the state. And to answer the question, we were told by PennDOT that the Marple Road and Darby Creek Road, which were actually the two roads that were going to be paved last year, were put off for this year, but they will be done. And I believe that they're actually trying to award the contracts. So it'll be sometime early summer to midsummer that I believe that they're going to be done.
Next, third row. Go.
Oh, it's such a beautiful township, you know, but that dump yard where all the hundreds of cars are behind Swiss Farm and behind Zach's, can anything be done about that?
Okay.
So awful back there.
I'm going to be careful how the property is under agreement of sale. I don't have a proposed use by the buyer, but the property is under agreement of sale because we have issued multiple citations about property maintenance. Now, the use itself, I'm here 22 years. When I first came into town, I went, what the heck is that? You know? And it looked like that then. Actually, I think it looked worse because they had them stacked up along Lawrence Road. Do you remember when the cars used to be parked up along Lawrence Road? It looked worse. Now, all we have on Lawrence Road are weeds, but so we issue citations for property maintenance violations. They pay the fine. They might come in, if it's weeds, they'll come in and clean up a little bit, but that's about as much as we get. And I've had conversations with both the owner and the buyer about, can't you just like back off of some of these until we get this done? And apparently the big sticking point is getting clearance from EPA because the back part of that site is also in the Superfund. And usually it takes a bit of time to clear those, especially now that the EPA has transitioned into the O&M for the treatment is the state now.
We are talking about where all those cars are, right?
Right, there's a capped landfill on part of that.
Okay. Other agreements of sale have fallen through because of the EPA.
Question, I gotta get, but question though, isn't that where I read that they've approved storage units to go in there?
The storage units are actually not on Continental Auto Parts property. The storage unit is the Mr. Storage facility is on the big wide field. It looks like a field that's actually a capped landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the old National Wood Preservers building used to be. So it's set back behind the Swiss Farms, and yeah, they're just, I'm not really sure where they are right now. If they're in PennDOT approvals, they don't have their record land development plans because of
they've
some
been
easements.
okayed in Haverford Township. That was in the paper.
Oh, it's okay. It's done. It's done as far as the township is concerned. We loved it because it generates almost no traffic. And it was.
Thanks for coming.
No.
Thank you for having me.
No, the rest of the room.
Oh, still on this side?
Yeah, so anyone on the back row? And then the
I had a
right
question about solicitors. Are there certain hours they're restricted to, the ones that knock on your doors?
Yes, they are. It's the ordinance says at dusk. So and it depends now that we're getting lighter, it's, could be a little bit later. But what we do is we advise you to put a no solicitor label on your door. You can put a little placard on your door saying no solicitor, and then they're in violation if they do solicit. But they do have to get a permit. Nonprofit groups do not. But any solicitors, PICO, somebody trying to sell you energy, stuff like that, they all have to go through extensive background check through the township building, and they have to have a permit to do that. If they come to your door and they don't show you a permit, call 911. We'll come out. We'll investigate them. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll cite them right on the spot or cite the company for sending them out for violating the township ordinance.
Well, our favorite one, Renewal by Anderson, has been back in the
Yes.
neighborhood.
It's continual with that.
Yes.
And I watched the way they work. They're almost like Moonies. They bring a van into the neighborhood. They get out. They go around the neighborhood. Last week, it was about 8:30 at night. I was in the kitchen doing something. My wife was upstairs, and I hear banging on the door. The dog goes crazy, and I come out, and the guy was already walking off and going next door. So I had my phone with me, so I walked after him. I said, "Are you looking for somebody?" He said, "Well, I'm with Renewal," and he started into a spiel. And I said, "Do you have a license?" He said, "No, our manager has that." And I said, "No, you have to have one on your body, and I want to see it." And he started stammering, so I dialed 911 and told the police to come out, and he picked a phone up out of his pocket, dialed somebody. All of a sudden, the van came from around the corner, picked him up. I walked out, and I got the license off the van. The officer showed up, and I said, "Here's the license. Can you do anything about it?" And he said, "Well, I'll take the report, and I'll turn it in, and we'll put a call out." But the problem is, they're not licensed in the township. And I went to codes about a year ago when they were coming in the township, and I asked in the main office there, I said, "Does Renewal have a license here?" And they looked and they said, "No." And then they showed me what a license looked like. They made a Xerox of one, and they said, if they don't have one of these, they shouldn't even be knocking on the doors. Can you take it a step up when you get them? Don't just give them a fine. Take them down and let them sit there for a while.
We can't.
Boss picks them up.
Great idea, but it
Their
doesn't
boss
work
can
that
pick
way.
them up their boss can pick them up at your place.
Just so, when we encounter them on the street, what we do is we do an extensive investigation on them. And what we do is we make sure they're not wanted, make sure that, if they have credentials, we check their IDs, and run them through our computers, make sure there's no prior contacts, no wants or warrants on them. So we do a full investigation on when you call us 911, we come out and do that. If they're not wanted, we take their information and we follow up with the company. We send citations to the company. We work closely with the codes department and we have an ongoing dialogue with them. Are they permanent? No. They're supposed to check in if they do have a permit. They check in with us if they have a permit. It's rare that we get people checking in with us, but we get calls and we go out and handle them that way. So just call 911 if it happens again. You don't have to confront them. Call them, let us do it, and we'll come out. But that's their MO. They take a van, drop people off, and then come back and pick them back up. So.
To your knowledge, do they have a permit in the township?
No.
No. Yet they keep coming back. It's like waves. They're here every week now. In the spring and the
As
fall.
soon as you see them, call the police.
The problem is they never stop coming. They don't hear, they don't care. When you call in, they disappear into the van and they're gone in about two minutes.
Well, don't confront them, call us before you alert them.
I wanted to know what he was there for, and I thought he was looking
Well,
for
sure,
somebody
but
on the street.
we do cite them.
Yeah, and, 8:30 at night, I think that's a little too late.
Well, I think that if you took the advice of the police officers, put the no solicitation, no soliciting, right? They're little, you can get them at the hardware store, and they're not allowed on your property if it's posted.
If they don't have a license, they don't care at that point. They don't care about anything. They just, well, we're not allowed to do that.
Is still us. I wrote the ordinance myself, but, the police can only do so much because we can't, stop people sort of at the border. But call the police. I've done it. It applies to residential and commercial property. Because people come into my office all the time and just to drop, oh, I want to sell you electricity. Well, that's nice. But, as soon as I ask, they look at me like, what are you talking about? And then I actually show them the ordinance because I wrote it and I have, I'm crazy enough to keep it in my office. But it's a problem. And you can't, they can only do so much. They can't put them in jail. The ordinance is written, the solicitor goes through, you can fine them, and after multiple, it takes a lot to have to put someone in jail for those types of violations, because that's how the law is. And we can't, You had a question?
My name is Jim Tyrell. I live in Washington. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this question or suggestion. I love the Glendale Trail. I will definitely love the Pensy Trail. And I really hope that it's wider than the Glendale Trail for purposes of, I'm sure police cars will be able to go from the YMCA to the police station. I would like to have, and when they do go down, there'll be enough room for everybody to safely bike or walk. Thank you very much.
Lori tells us it's going to be 10 feet wide.
Is that all?
That's it. And part of the reason is because there's also EPA infrastructure down that trail, so we're avoiding that. And we have to try and maintain some natural setting. It's a very narrow space, but it is a 10-foot wide trail.
Yeah, I accept that. Thank you.
Well, we're gonna go back and forward and.
Okay.
Ann Spiker, West Hillcrest. I've been there for 50 years, so I know what I'm speaking of. Two issues. They both are the intersection of Darby and Hillcrest. We have a do not enter sign from 4 to 6. It is not enforced. When the last time, not that I'm looking for people to go out and be arrested, but it is not enforced. And the other thing is that from my perspective, that's a very dangerous corner there. The visibility to come in off of Darby or to get out of Hillcrest is really bad. I'm surprised we haven't had some major accidents there. I don't know, there are signs that, you do not park so many feet from the corner, whether you would consider moving them back further, but the visibility is very, very bad at that corner. Thank you.
We'll address the do not enter 4 to 6 tomorrow. We'll have officers up there tomorrow.
Be watching.
Okay, you'll see them there, and if they're not there, you can call us, but.
I go all the time. I take the long route around.
And understand, we get these requests all the time, and we have officers, we call them selective enforcements. The officers move from space to different areas of the township because we get so many traffic complaints. So that they'll address it for a few days, which usually remedies it for a period of time, then it starts up again. But we will address it for you, I promise you.
Thank you.
I complained about that intersection, both sides, last year. I don't know how many times. They did do some enforcement. They can't stay there, but when I pick up my son from his summer job every day, it was horrible. People disregard. They come out, people stop for a day or two, but they can't be everywhere. But if you let us know, we let them know, and the selective enforcement does help.
Just so you know, we've actually been across the street on East Hillcrest because we have the same complaints in the morning time. So we're mixing it up. I'm sorry, but we'll get to you. But we have to respond to different requests, and one of the priorities was we're getting a lot of complaints right across the street, so we started saturating that area. We'll be over into your neighborhood next.
Okay.
Joe Sabatini. I live on Belvedere in the corner of Ralston. When the Y first built, had the access road at the end of Ralston Avenue to go into the Y, this township thing. I was told at that time, when we were told at that time, that they would also put an access road from Yale, Princeton, and Harvard to go into the trail to alleviate some of the walking traffic on Boston Avenue. I guess that was a question for Lori.
Yeah, repeat that last part again. She has to answer that one.
She's the expert.
We were informed when they opened up Boston Avenue to go into the Y that there was a possibility that you would open up Harvard, Yale, and Princeton to go to the trail to alleviate some of our foot traffic. And is there any progress on that?
Right now, if you, at the end of Princeton, there actually is an access, and we're going to be improving some of that. Not on Yale. There is no access proposed on Yale, and Harvard actually is being opened because of a development that's going into the former McCandless Fuels site. So not only will there be pedestrian access there, and that's where the bridge was taken down, the old railroad bridge. Not only will you see pedestrian access, but there will also be bicycle access, because that 10-foot wide trail it's paved for bicycle access.
The access on Boston Avenue is unbelievable. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing is, and I wouldn't say this in front of the Y folks that were here, but we got a lot of complaints from the people that use the Y that they weren't able to get to the Y when we had the trail shut down to rip the bridge down. And so people are using that trail. Yeah, it is good. And we're hoping that when it's improved, it really steps up the number of
We also
users.
had, there was a lot of complaints when they plowed the snow at the end of Boston Avenue on top of the walkway.
Yes.
Quite weak. But, I would also like to thank you, Lori, and Jane, thank you very much for working with me. And Joe Seeley, he's not here tonight.
No.
It was a pretty rough 2 years
Yeah.
for all that construction.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're happy to do whatever we can, and I want to say you're just incredibly pleasant every time you call me, and I really do appreciate it, because sometimes it's hard, you know, I think all of us get frustrated, and it's really difficult to stay composed. So I do appreciate that, truly. Anybody else? Everybody?
I just wanted to ask,
Is Zach's closing? And if so, what's going in there? Nobody's,
there's that rumor going around.
There was a big for lease sign, but I have no idea.
The sign came down.
Yeah, that's.
Well, the sign came down because it was in the visibility, the
okay.
triangle. But, you know, I think that CB Ellis has the listing, or I guess the leasing for the property owner, and that their sign didn't go back up. So, and they originally had come in and sought permission to put 2 signs, like out of the intersection, out of the visibility triangle, and they're not there. So, I don't know, could have just been the property owner, you know, trying to get more rent or something. Could have been anything.
Sometimes they'll put them up to make the current leaseholder aggravated, so they'll renew their lease. It is a tactic. I mean, I do know that. So every once in a while they'll do that. One of our offices is actually doing it right now. It's kind of fascinating. But, you know, they're trying to deal with SEPTA and Amtrak, so.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Are there any other? Okay.
Parents Avenue, Belvedere Avenue. We noticed today, and I don't know if it's something that is appropriate to address in this forum, but we've noticed an inordinate amount of people walking their dogs without a leash. And it's, as responsible dog owners, we are irresponsible. We don't walk our dog anymore because we're afraid of heart attacks. Is there anything?
Call 911. Yep, it's
It's hard when you're walking down the street and you can't really call 911.
Yeah. We
Today, I had to go across the street. I stopped home for lunch, and this dog was attacking the mail girl, and she was new. She was a sub, and I actually went over. I didn't yell at the dog, but you know, I got between the mail girl and the dog, and the dog was on an invisible fence, but still, the mail person has to go in. So I don't know.
Yeah, Mrs. Sabatini, we, you know, if you know if it's a repeat area, we actually have one animal control officer that actually supplements the police department. So when the officer's not working, and quite frankly, Haverford and Upper Darby are the only 2 towns in all of Delaware County that still fund and actually have an animal control department to do that. Everything else is, all the other communities basically shut that down. So we do enforce it. The areas that we are hitting frequently, our animal control officer, is the new trail, the Murray Place Trail. That has become a major problem. A lot of seniors that are walking down there, and you know, people pull up, they take the dog off, and they let them run. We're enforcing that. Your Honor will probably tell you she's been seeing some of those people in our courtroom, and we're going to continue to enforce them as much as we can. But if you know that there's a problem, a consistent problem in a particular area, if you can call either the police department and notify our animal control officer, who does work Monday through Friday, and if he's not working, then we'll supplement that with the police department. But yeah.
3 blocks up, we saw 2, just walking here.
And further, I mean, if you know it's a repeat offender, you possibly know where that dog lives or the owner lives, you can get a hold of me personally, and I can get a hold of the animal warden. I'll have him go out the next day, check it out, and make sure, there is a leash law, and they have to follow it, and he has no problem doing enforcement on it. All right?
Can I ask you a question? Sure. The residential permit parking that we're going to get eventually.
Right.
We had to give up one side for no parking, now we get
Right.
residential. When I call 911, I really don't like doing that. I mean, is there another number?
That's the only way to get a hold of us. That's how we dispatch now. When we switch from, everybody feels the same way because it's ingrained in you. 911 is the emergency number, but in Delaware County, that is the dispatch number for all of Delaware County. So no matter what the call is, it's 911. So.
It used to be a violation of the law to call 911.
Well, yeah, but that's changed. When we got rid of our dispatch, consolidated, and moved out there, and that's what happened. So I understand how you feel, but that's what they're there for.
So we're getting the permit on Ralston Avenue. I have a corner house.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 months ago, I had applied one for Belvedere.
Right.
So I was hoping I can use it for Ralston Avenue, since I'm a corner house.
I think you should be able to.
Well,
no, you should be able to.
We make exceptions for corner houses. We understand the situations. We don't. It's not there to hammer the residents. It's to keep the people who we don't want parking there. So
You actually check the registration and
Yeah.
swear to that?
Well, the registration's on the tag. It's got to match.
Right.
So
It says Belvedere on it.
So
Usually park on Ralston.
I'm right outside of records. If you have an issue, you can come and see me anytime during the day. I'll be more than glad to take care of you. So.
Sure. Go ahead.
Just 2 quick comments. I'm Mike Toothman, Gulfview, so I'm in your.
Yeah.
And I don't want to minimize any of the issues with the Y that you've heard. Obviously, you ought to try to get those addressed. But for myself and for a lot of my neighbors, the Y has been a wonderful addition to this township. So I hope you can resolve those issues. But I think it's been a good addition. It's been good. So that's comment 1. Comment number 2, coming to these meetings gives me a greater appreciation for the amount of time you all have to spend at this job. So thank you very much. And that's all.
Siegel, I'd like to say thank you to township officials for being here tonight. I know it's a long night, and for all of you in coming out and supporting us, because we are here to support you and for this community. We want to help. We want to make a difference, or we wouldn't be doing this. So Commissioner Siegel and I are very thankful to be here tonight, and please don't hesitate to contact us anytime that you need anything. And we thank you and Lori does such an outstanding job, and Township Manager Larry Gentili is just fabulous, and we have our wonderful police department. The chief is not here tonight, but they do they answer us right away, and it's really so helpful. So I will hand it over.
We look good is them.
That's true.
If they don't respond, we don't look good. So we're only as good, it's like anything, as the people who support us. And the staff in this township, from the Public Works and everything else up, are really terrific. So they deserve the thank you. And so do you for coming. This is the biggest crowd we've had, even without the Y. So we're happy. It may be something that makes more sense to join multiple commissioners and sort of pool resources. And they don't have to go to 2 meetings either as well. But thank you all for